Welcome to Chapter 4, Interest Rate, Required Rate, and Inflation. Imagine you're saving up or borrowing money for something big like a video game or a bike. Interest rates are like a bonus or extra cost for saving or borrowing that money. If you save your money for a long time, like in a 30-year savings plan, you usually get a bigger bonus than if you save for just a few months. This is because longer plans often have higher interest rates. In this lesson, we're going to learn about why some savings or borrowing deals give you more extra money than others, and what makes these interest rates go up or down. We'll also talk about how sometimes the extra money you get or pay changes because of inflation, which is when prices for things go up over time. Understanding all this helps you make smart choices about saving your money or borrowing some for something important. Interest rates are like a fee you pay for using someone else's money or the extra money you get when you save or invest your money. They're usually shown as a yearly rate, called the annual percentage rate APR. Interest rates are important when you borrow money for things like buying a car, a house, or paying for college, and also when you're saving or investing money. If you have good financial health, you might get to pay less interest when you borrow money. Also, there is two kinds of interest. Simple interest, which is just based on the original amount of money. How to calculate simple interest. Annual interest equals the principal multiplied by the interest rate, or simply annual interest equals the principal multiplied by the interest rate. And compound interest, which lets you earn interest on the interest you've already made, leading to more money over time. How to calculate compound interest. Start with same formula as simple interest, such as total interest equals the principal multiplied by the sum of 1 plus the interest rate. Then finding the total interest, you multiply the number of years to get the total interest. It also explains different names for interest rates, like discount rate, required rate, and cost of capital, showing how they're used differently in money matters. So what is the discount rate? The discount rate is like a special price the bank sets for lending money. Imagine you want to borrow money from a bank. The bank doesn't give it for free. Instead, they charge you an extra fee on top of what you borrowed. This fee is based on the discount rate. What is another name for interest rate or required rate of return? The required rate of return is like the minimum profit you expect to make from investing your money somewhere. It helps you decide if an investment is worth it based on the profit you expect to get. What is the cost of capital? The cost of capital is like the price you pay for using someone else's money for your business or project. This cost helps you figure out if it's worth borrowing the money based on how much you'll have to pay back in the end. Simple interest is the interest only on the principal, while compound interest is the interest on the principal, plus the interest on earned interest. In simple terms, with simple interest, your earnings are based only on the initial amount. With compound interest, your earnings grow faster because they're based on the initial amount, plus the interest that keeps piling up over time. Section of interest rates, key questions. What is the primary purpose of an interest rate? The interest rate is the percentage of the principal that a lender charges a borrower for the use of assets. How does compound interest differ from simple interest? Compound interest includes interest on previously earned interest. What is the term for the percentage of the principal that a lender charges a borrower for the use of assets? Interest rate. How is the interest rate expressed? As a percentage, as the interest is the percentage of the principal that a lender receives or that a borrower pays to use the money. What is the main purpose of charging interest? It allows borrowers to pay to use the assets of another entity to accomplish their own goals. Because the funds do not belong to borrowers, they must pay to use them. So the means this payment is the interest rate. What is the required rate of return? The required rate of return is the compensation investors or lenders expect for the risk associated with their investment in stocks, bonds, or loans, and it influences whether financial managers accept or reject projects. Components of required rate of return. This rate includes three main components: opportunity cost, risk, and inflation, each affecting the overall expected return on an investment. Opportunity cost. Opportunity cost refers to the potential gains from alternative investments that are foregone by choosing a specific investment. Opportunity cost emphasizes the importance of considering all possible options and their respective outcomes when making financial decisions, as every choice involves a trade-off and the potential loss of benefits from other alternatives. Risk. Risk is the possibility that the actual return on an investment will differ from the expected return, influencing the required rate to account for potential losses. Inflation. Inflation decreases the purchasing power of money over time, necessitating higher returns to maintain the investment's value. People save or invest their money. They aim to increase it at least by the rate of inflation, so they don't lose out on buying power over time. Section of required rate of return, key questions. What is a component of the required rate of return? Opportunity cost. The required rate of return is composed of opportunity cost, risk, and inflation. Why would a long-term investment require a higher rate of return? There is greater risk involved and a higher opportunity cost. There is greater risk because you cannot ensure the return of your investment for a longer period of time. And there is a higher opportunity cost because you cannot use that money for other things for a longer period of time. You just inherited $25,000 from a long-lost relative. You decide to put the money in a savings account for the time being. What would be considered an opportunity cost of putting the money in savings? Buying a brand new car worth $25,000. Because buying a new car would be considered an opportunity cost because it is something you are giving up by keeping the money in your savings account. 5 years ago, Ahmed decided he was going to save up to purchase a car with cash. The car he wants is priced at $15,000. He saved $245 a month in an account that gave him enough interest to have $15,000 in 5 years. Today he pulled out $15,000 from his account to buy the car. But the price of the car is now $16,562. Which component of the required rate of return did Ahmed forget to consider? Inflation. The price of the car simply went up by $1,562 due to inflation. What is inflation? Inflation is defined as the rate at which the average price level of a basket of selected goods and services in an economy increases over a period, leading to a decrease in purchasing power. How inflation happens. The main causes of inflation include increased demand for goods and services, rising costs of production, and adaptive expectations leading to higher wages. Technology and inflation. Technological advancements such as the invention of the assembly line by Henry Ford can reduce the effects of inflation by lowering production costs and increasing efficiency, though prices may still rise due to other factors. Section of inflation key questions. Why is built-in inflation linked to adaptive expectations? Workers want higher wages to keep their standard of living as prices increase, which pushes the prices even higher. When the prices of goods and services go up, employees expect and even demand higher wages to maintain their living standard, which will lead to further increases in prices. Why does an increased demand for goods and services cause inflation? An increase in demand often causes an insufficient supply in the market, which causes prices to go up until the demand is once again equal to the supply. What happens to prices in a market in which there is inflation? Prices rise because of increase in demand, increase in cost of goods, and adaptive expectations. What is decomposing interest rate? Interest rates include 3 components: opportunity cost, risk, and inflation. The interest rate, or required rate of return, is determined by rate 8's risk-free rate plus risk premium. Risk-free rate is an indicator of inflation and opportunity cost, and describes the rate of return on an investment with no risk. It reflects the minimum return investors would expect for any investment, since they would not accept additional risk without the potential for higher returns. Risk premium is the compensation for the amount of risk taken on by investors. This implies that the higher risk you take, the higher return you require. Likewise, higher inflation and higher opportunity cost both require a higher return. It helps explain why and how investors choose between different investments, balancing the desire for higher returns against the fear of potential losses. Nominal rate versus real rate. The interest rate most often used in our daily lives is the nominal rate, and so the nominal rate. What is nominal rate? As the rate at which invested money grows for a certain period of time. The nominal rate includes inflation, so it does not measure the actual purchasing power you will earn in the future. Using the nominal rate results in the amount of money you will have in the future, but not how much you will be able to buy with it. This rate doesn't consider that things might cost more next year because of inflation, so while it looks like you're making more money, you might not be able to buy more stuff with it. What is the formula for nominal rate? The formula is the growth rate in purchasing power is calculated by adding 1 to the nominal rate, dividing that sum by 1 plus the inflation rate, and then subtracting 1 from the result. Let's add a real example with the nominal rate of 5% and the inflation of 2%. The growth rate is calculated as follows. The growth rate in purchasing power equals 1 plus the nominal rate of 0.05 or 5%, divided by 1 plus the inflation rate of 0.02 or 2%, minus 1. This calculation results in a growth rate in purchasing power of 0.03 or 3%. Thus, your purchasing power increases by only 3% instead of 5%. So what is the real rate? The real rate tells you by how much your money's buying power will actually increase, considering the effect of inflation. So, it's a more accurate measure of the true benefit of an investment or loan, reflecting the real gain or cost in terms of what your money can buy in the future. This is called the Fisher effect. an economic theory created by the economist Irving Fisher. The real rate formula is the real rate is calculated by taking the nominal rate, subtracting the inflation rate, and then dividing the result by 1 plus the inflation rate. This formula can be approximated by simply subtracting the inflation rate from the nominal rate. Section of nominal rate and real rate key questions. What is the compensation for risk given to investors called? Risk premium is the compensation that investors take for the risk they have to bear. Which type of interest rate is the rate at which invested money grows for a certain period time? The nominal rate is the rate at which invested money grows for a certain period of time, and is the interest rate most often used in your daily life. Which component of an interest rate is an indicator of inflation and opportunity cost? Risk-free rate. The risk-free rate describes the rate of return on an investment with no risk, so it just measures inflation and opportunity cost. Summary of Chapter 4. The interest rate is the percentage of the principal that a lender charges a borrower for the use of assets. The interest rate has different names depending on your perspective. The discount rate, the required rate, and the cost of capital. The interest rate is composed of opportunity cost, risk, and inflation. Inflation occurs due to increased demand, rising prices, and built-in inflation. Nominal rates include inflation and thus represents the amount of money you will have in the future, while real rates reflect future purchasing power. Chapter 4. Test questions. What is the name for the interest rate expressed on an annual basis? Annual percentage rate. The APR is the annual interest rate that is charged for borrowing money or that is earned through investment, and it is calculated on an annual basis. Why is the required rate of return also known as the hurdle rate? It is the minimum rate that a firm must surpass to accept a project. When a financial manager decides whether to invest in a certain project, the projected return needs to meet the minimum rate of return, or else the firm must hurdle the rate in order to accept the project. What is the inflation rate? The rate at which the average price level of a basket of goods and services in an economy increases is the inflation rate. What does the risk-free rate indicate? Inflation and opportunity cost. The risk-free rate includes inflation and opportunity cost. Suppose Sophia is considering a new stock investment for her retirement account. This stock has significant risk but is quite popular in the market. Inflation for the next few years is expected to be 2-3% per year, and the current U.S. Treasury rates are about 2%. How should she use this information to decide what type of return she can expect from the stock? Based on the type of financial security the company selling the stock should set the required return used to assess the stock. Since the inflation of 2-3% will reduce any nominal return she receives by this amount, she would want a higher return to accommodate for the opportunity costs and risks associated with the investment.